Welcome, everyone, to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Andrea McGinty. Did I get your last name right, Andrea?
Yep, dude, it's Andrea McGinty.
She's the America's premier dating expert, founder of 33,000 Dates. Now, check this out. Oprah Winfrey, The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, People Magazine, Entertainment Tonight, and The Today Show, plus many others, name Andrea America's premier dating expert. And today's topic is dating advice over 50. Andrea, thank you so much for People on Dating. How are you? A little bit about yourself. What was your journey like to become an author, a dating expert? What was that journey like, and why this field? What was it about this field that got you revved up?
I've always been good at this. This goes back, it's weird. It goes all the way back to high school. I fixed up one of my high school friends who is still married. I fixed up two of my college friends who are still married. And, I never thought this would turn into a career. I have an accounting and finance background. And when I was in my early 20s, I was getting married. And shortly before the wedding, he called it off. And, I was living in Chicago, dumped. And I was thinking, okay, how do you meet people? And, 20s, you're doing the bars, that's still sort of fun. And your friends are fixing you up with sort of bad dates. And I had this thought one day, and it was right after an executive recruiter called me about a job. And I thought, gee, if there's a place that you could go to that was like an executive recruiter, but for your personal life, I would go in a heartbeat. And this is 1990. There's nothing, there's no Google, there's no online dating, there's nothing out there. So I thought, I'm going to start this thing. So I started a company called It's Just Lunch and matchmaking. Started in Chicago. Actually, my second location was New York. And it took off like wildfire. And I ended up with 110 locations internationally over the next 15 years and lots of marriages. Me personally, I have over 10,000 marriages. And then I sold out to a private equity group, but I wasn't done. Because when I got the offer to sell It's Just Lunch, I really thought, this is a good time to date because now we're in the 2010s, right?
Yeah.
Online dating is starting to gain some traction. It's starting to lose its stigma. The sites kind of know what they're doing. It's not 2000 where everything was chaotic and nobody knew what they were doing and there were all these scams and stuff. And what really started career number two, my second act with dating, was a friend of mine got divorced, a guy, and he was 48, and he was doing online dating, and he said, "Oh, this is awful." He's talking to me, he's telling me his experience, and I'm like, okay, give me your login and your password, and let me take a look and see what you're doing, because he was on a decent site. And so I look and here's this guy. He's successful. He's a CFO. He's good looking, and he has horrible pictures. People talk about men holding fish or bathroom photos or these selfies in your car. I mean, he was doing everything wrong, and his profile was horrible. So I went in, changed some things around. And a couple weeks later, he calls me. His name's Mark. He goes, "Wow, I'm getting some really good dates now." And I'm like, "Yes, you can say thank you now." So, I was just, I was thrilled. He was meeting people. And then I realized people, especially, in our age group, once you hit your the 40s and 50s, maybe you got married in your 20s or, 30s. But it's not my kids that are 20, 22, and 24. They grew up with everything online, right?
Yeah.
We didn't. So people, in their 50s, they never planned on, oh, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to, walk up the aisle a second time. They thought, wow, I'm married. This is it. And the divorce rate's 48% in the US, especially once you hit 50. So I found people after I worked with Mark, I started getting referrals like crazy. I guess it was because of my It's Just Lunch background.
Yeah.
And hence I started 33,000 dates because that's how many dates at that point I'd set up in my life. And I started doing the helping people navigate all aspects of online dating. I mean, there's 1,400 dating platforms out there, which it's crazy. Like, how do you know which one to pick? I mean, you're in New
Yeah.
York.
Yeah.
What works in New York does not necessarily work in Miami or Dallas or Seattle. I mean, it's a whole different market. So people, they didn't know where to go, which site to pick, and if they pick the wrong site, and the odds are not with you to pick the right site, right?
Yeah.
So you get on the wrong site, you're out of there in like less than a week. You're like, ugh, this is horrible. So they didn't know what to do. And so I help them with all aspects of online dating up until the point that they meet somebody that they really like. And over 65% of my clients are in relationships. And I just had a book come out last month.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. And it seems, I see online, Andrea, that people or some women are complaining that the men in their age group, 45, 50, 55, are not mature. They still got baggage and all that. So I mean, obviously at our ages, it's going to be tough to overcome the baggage, so to speak. But is it possible to at least maybe put the baggage to the side, if that makes sense? Because if you find someone as for a man, a woman that I find attractive and want to be with, I, I don't want to bring up the past. I want to move forward. Is that the issues that maybe some men are having? They're not letting go of the past. They think that the next woman they're going to be with is the same as the one that they just finished dating. Are we categorizing too many women as the same?
Yeah, we are. So number one, here's what I would say. It's an issue for both men and women. So it's
Right.
not it's not just men. So
Mhm.
the women just tend to talk about it more. And number two, I never use the word baggage because at age 50 or 55, we all have it, but I call
Right.
it life experience. And so we have life experience. So what do we have? We might have some kids. We might have some parents that are aging, and we have things to deal with there. So we have stuff, but we're also so much smarter too, right?
Right.
We recognize those red flags right away. I find people, maybe they're not sure 100% what they want, but they're 100% sure what they don't want because they've had this life experience. So I don't think it's a problem just for women. I think it's an issue for men as well. And
Yeah.
I think if people can just, reframe it and say, hey, I've got life experience. Of course, I've got life experience. Doesn't that make us wiser and knowing more what we want? I think it's a good thing.
No, I agree. Because I like what you said that you could spot the red flags a little quicker. Now, for me, and I want to get your little opinion on something. So I dated this woman. This is like 5 years ago, and the thing is, Andrea, she gave me her red flags early. She told me she's been in a bunch of relationships. It was a lot of it was when she was younger, um, and I ignored the red flags because I felt that she wasn't a relationship type of woman. She's more of maybe having a few fun here and there and then moving on. Now, mind you, she's in her 50s, but I felt that she never left that because she did talk about it a lot. My issue was I heard what she said, but I didn't listen. How important is for us to like open both of our ears and just concentrate on what someone's saying? Because sometimes they reveal their red flags early, and I see you smiling. So go ahead.
Yep. Okay. I mean, you might have thought, I don't know what you were thinking, Will, but you might have thought, wow, she's really attractive, or, I like her. And so it's going in one ear, out the other ear, right?
100%.
Yeah. So she sounds like she's a serial dater. So
Yeah.
she's probably not going to be, the one for you. And that's something, as a dating coach, I help people identify really fast,
Mhm.
those kind of red flags, and be able to coach them onto, if I had been working with you, Will, I would have said, okay, Will, after 3 dates, you've gone on with her. I'm kind of not liking what I'm hearing. So, okay, keep seeing her, but we're looking at a couple of other women on this site, and you're going to go on first dates with them too. So you're not
Okay.
going to stop dating. That's one of the mistakes people make. All of a
Mm.
sudden they decide, oh, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop dating because I'm attracted to this person. Um, and boom, it blows up, and you don't really recognize those red flags I don't care how many self-help books you've read. It's really nice to have somebody who's in your corner for accountability, who's your cheerleader, and who's really objective about the whole deal. You might talk to your best friends and they might say, because they like you, they're going to say, oh, that's okay, Will. She'll probably come around. You're such a great guy, blah, 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 blah. Where my advice would have been, Will, cut her loose. You're done.
Yeah.
And we're moving on to these other three women that I found for you.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And it's funny because at that time I was single for a while and I did find her very attractive. But I'm telling you, Andrea, she gave me the red flags early on and I still ignored it. It was until after maybe 6 months or a year later, I can't remember the time frame. When I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, she gave me her red flags up front. And I just, like you said, it went in one ear and out the other, and I wasn't paying attention. Um, do we is with matchmaking and the 33,000 days that you found it, are you competing with Instagram now? Because it seems like women have more options than men these days, according to what I've been reading, what I'm seeing. Are we as men competing with Instagram, knowing that they
No,
could get DMs on the down low? Because there's still beautiful women past 40. I always say never count those women out because I see women that are over 40, 50, they still look great. Case in point, who I'm talking to.
thanks for that, Will. No, you know what? No, you are not competing with Instagram at all. So I think there's a couple things that you have to remember. There's certain dating apps and platforms that are going to be more female centric and some that are going to be more male centric. So,
Okay.
for example, your market where you live, if you went on Bumble as a dating platform, as a dating app, right now in New York City, Bumble is 75% female. So your odds are really, really good. On the
Mhm.
other hand, Will, if you went on Match.com, it's flip side. There's definitely
Uh,
more men. And if I was talking to a 50-year-old woman, I tell her that's where you need to go. You need to
gotcha.
go. You need to go on that site. So no, you're not competing with those. You just have to be smart about the site you pick, and then you've got to have some resilience too and
Yeah.
patience because and you have to be good at self promotion, at promoting yourself. When you think about like
Mhm.
Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, a lot of people, they're good at promoting themselves there. You've got to promote yourself online the same way that you do there, and that's where I find issues with women over 50. Like they'll sit online and they'll look at men, but they'll wait for the men to reach out. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is the 2020s. We're equal. Reach out to the men because they like to hear from you and they look at it as self-confidence is super sexy. And
Right.
the biggest complaint, because a lot of my clients are men too, the biggest complaint I hear from men is, you know what? She sent me a heart or a like or a smile or a wink and no message. Like, what's up with that? She kicked the ball back in my court. Like, why? Why do I have to do all the work? So I think the men have a very legitimate point there. So, women listeners, send messages and make them quirky and unique and fun.
Right.
None of this, what are you doing this weekend? How's your Friday? Forget it. That's so boring and vanilla. And and the other thing is watch for messages that absolutely are like cut and paste. If they didn't use your name and they didn't say anything about you, I mean, Will, you might have a great picture of you ice climbing or hiking, and they don't make any comment about that, and it's just a
Yeah.
very generic message. Skip, delete,
Okay.
block. Yep.
Wow. Okay. So how important are our pictures then? Because when you help that client out, Mark, if I got his name right, and all of a sudden now he got more views, more likes, and all that. So because people, like you said, do the selfies or whatever. holding up face. I never got that, but. Should we take more action pictures or should we take pictures at events that we've been to? What would be like one or two suggestions you would let's focus on the men.
Okay.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Okay, men. Oh my gosh, you guys need better pictures across the board. I don't care. If I'm on a super high end site like Rhea to, the lowest end you could be on, like a Tinder or a Facebook, oh my gosh, men, you need to have good photos because that is the first thing women look at. And of course, it's the first thing you guys look at too. You look at the
Yeah.
women's photos, right?
Yeah.
So let's assume first, you're on the right site. Yay. Now, the next most important thing is your photos. So, okay, here's what you want. 6 is the magic number for photos. You want to have 6 great photos. And I don't mean like your LinkedIn picture or a really posed photo. I mean, okay, I'll give you an example. I have this Wall Street guy who is so Wall Street. And he took this picture where he's like juggling pomegranates. And he gets so many comments on that picture because here he is, like in a suit, looks great, and he's juggling pomegranates outside a building on Wall Street. How fun is that?
Right.
That's interesting. So you want some action photos. If you're into skiing, you're into golf. Have a couple photos like that. You need one photo that shows that you're social. So it could be you at Christmas or Hanukkah, or at a work event, or out with your friends, grabbing a beer and watching a basketball game or a football game, a group photo. It shows you've got a social life. You want a full body shot so we can see all of you. You want a close up of you smiling. If you have a dog, dogs sell. I'm sorry, cat people. Sorry, Taylor Swift. Cats just don't sell. They just, people, both men and women, like the dog photos. So if you have a dog, that's a really cute photo too. Casual photos, just, sitting outside at an outdoor cafe, sipping on a coffee or a margarita or whatever. That's a nice casual shot too.
Okay.
So I don't want to see any selfies. I don't want to see sunglasses. If you're taking a ski shot, take your helmet off, take your goggles off so we can see you. You're out on the tennis court and you have a hat on. Maybe one photo with a hat's okay, but I don't want to
Yeah.
see all hat photos. We want
Right.
to see if you have hair or not.
True.
Not that we care if you do or not, but we just really want to, see what you look like.
I still have some hair, so.
Okay, yeah, well, you're looking good. Okay, thumbs up on that hair. Not that bald men don't get dates. They do
No,
too.
of course.
Um,
I'm just kidding.
yeah. So and the other thing with the photos, make sure the photos. It's going to be what you really look like when you show up, because it's not fair to the other person. Just like you don't want to show up on a date and the photos you looked at of the woman, she misrepresented her age and she's 10 years older, or she's 50 pounds heavier and she showed you a picture, from 5 years ago. It's just not fair. Who cares what your weight is or your age? Be honest about it, and take real pictures that are, what you look like now.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I like the fact that you said, take different types of shots, action shots, group photos, with a hat, without a hat, just different. At least, like you said, 6, maybe minimum 6, more, maybe 10. Or what do you think? Oh, that's too many pictures. Something
I
like
think
that.
6.
Okay.
6 is a good number. 10's too many to scroll through. And talk about red flags out there, women and men. Somebody who has one photo, block, delete immediately, because one photo, they're a bot. They're not serious about this.
Yeah.
Forget it.
I know that sounds good. So, first of all, Andrea, this is gold nugget you've given us. Let's talk about more about your book. What was the driving force to write the book? And show
Here's
us. There
my
you
book.
go.
Here's my baby.
Yes, there you go.
So it's
Second
called
acts.
Second Acts: Winning Strategies for Dating Over 50. Here's my thing. People who can't afford my dating coaching. I mean, not that I'm that expensive, but you could buy my book. And this is what my book does. It's sort of a business plan for your love life. And this comes out of me 30 years of doing what I do. So the book is it has 14 worksheets in the book. It has QR codes where I coach you on those worksheets, that by the time you get to the end of this book, it's very tactical, it's very strategic. You're ready to go online and you know exactly what you're going to write for your bio, what site you're going to go on. You know a lot of information. And the very first worksheet I have in there is, where's your head at? What's your mindset?
Yeah.
And there's 10 questions about, where you're at. And it's kind of like if you call me at 33,000 dates and I do like a 15-minute interview with you to see, if we're a good fit and I can take you on, as a coaching client. It's kind of the same thing with that worksheet. You know, are you ready for this? Can you go on a date without ranting about your ex? Can you go
Mm.
out on a date and have positive things to say? Are you over your last relationship? Are you ready for this? Or are you going to go on the date and be like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing online dating. It seems like it's for losers, but I thought I'd give it a shot. People say these things on dates. I'm like, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no. You don't say those kind of things. So it's everything from worksheets like that to, I skip forward to one about personal branding, where we come up with your branding and what makes you unique. Um, and because you want your profile online to be really short and sweet, people don't have attention spans. They'll flip through your photos, they'll give, a cursory glance at your profile, and then they move on. And then kind of like the end of the book is a one-page business plan for your
Ooh,
love life. And I know that sounds like, oh, really? I have to have a business plan for my love life? Yeah, you do, guys and
makes
girls.
sense.
You do, because you want to know, what you're doing, what you're looking for, and you're not just going in there, ad hoc, like, oh, whatever. You've got a plan. And those are the people that within 3 months find somebody. So
Not,
three months is kind of the magic number online. When I was talking about resilience earlier and
yeah.
patience and perseverance, you want to get to 3 months. Um, don't give up. And those first couple of dates online, all they are going to be is practice. You know, you came out of a 20-year marriage or a 10-year relationship, and you go out on your first date after that. It's total practice. And
Right.
after a couple of those kind of dates, first dates, you're going to realize, wow, I still got it. I've still got stuff to talk about. I'm still, pretty hip, and people are finding me interesting, and your confidence soars. So have
Right.
fun on dates.
And one thing I wanted to circle back. How important is, let's say a guy, well, beside, okay, you're meeting online. That seems like the number one way to do it. But if someone's not for the apps, but they want to meet like in everyday life, a library, a church, or whatever, is that something that you would recommend? Or how do you feel about in-person meeting, if I made sense at all?
Oh yeah, you totally made sense. If you're in your 20s, yes. If you're in your late 40s, 50s, 60s, no. That's called organic dating.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's where, I always say organics for blueberries. It's not for like dating. It's
Okay.
you're just there's not that group of people that you had in college or grad school or in the workplace in your 20s. They're just not out there. That whole meet cute thing at,
Yeah.
Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or something. It just doesn't happen anymore. And then I'll have women who say, I've asked all my friends, and my friends don't help. And I'm like, of course they don't. They don't know anyone anymore.
Yeah.
It's a very limited group of people. Okay, so let's say you don't want to do online dating. You don't want to use a matchmaker. You don't want to use me. Then I would say your best thing is find something you're super interested in. Like if it's pickleball or it's hiking, and do a meetup group. Um,
Okay.
but the only thing about those meetup groups, they can be they'd be good for you. They'll be very heavily skewed female. So,
Right.
for a guy, okay. So when I'm in my yoga class, I met my husband online, by the way. Okay.
Okay.
So he always laughs when I come home from yoga, and we can have, I think, 40 or 50 people in my class. I always count how many men are in the class. And when I come home, he says, how many men today? I'm like, five. And
Wow.
he's like, another day I might say six or four. And I'm thinking to myself, these are smart guys going to yoga class. They mostly look like 40s, 50s. And there's all these like attractive and, women either in shape or getting in shape in the class. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, hey, good idea, guys. I had one female client who was like, I'm going to meet him on the driving range. So she would go out and hit golf balls. And she never met anyone. And you know why? Because she hates golf. And
Ah,
she just thought it would be a good place to meet men. So if something you hate, don't go do it. That's
yeah,
just not a good idea. So I don't know. I don't understand why people wouldn't use online dating if you
yeah,
do it right. And part of the reason I sold It's Just Lunch was because I saw the numbers where a matchmaking service might have 200 or 300 members to pick, your dates out from. Will
yeah.
online, if we're in New York, I've got a couple thousand that probably fit a lot of the criteria you're looking for. And it's just a matter of, using the filters and the algorithms to drill down and find the top 20 for you. It's like,
Right.
it's, if you're doing it right and you're doing it with a positive attitude, it just makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, no, I love what you said about just getting out there and not giving up. To me, that's the thing. Do not give up, you know? And before I let you go, Andrea, anything else you want to promote? Any speaking engagements, TEDx talks that you should be doing or have done in the past, going back on Oprah? Anything else that you got cooking in the next few days or months?
Well, I have coming up in April, I have a 4-week seminar where you get me for an hour a week and I teach you the basics. And there's a group of people in it. You don't see each other, it's via Zoom.
Okay.
So it's a way to get a taste of coaching without going through the whole program. And I had a really nice feature article yesterday in USA Today all about my book too, which was
Nice.
you know which was really awesome. And then in the works, who knows if it's going to go through, we have a Netflix show that
Very
we're
cool.
taping right now, and we'll see if it actually makes it, or if it gets cut. But it's all about me and one of my friends who's a matchmaker, where they watch us get a man and a woman separately, not to go out with each other, but ready to date, everything from their wardrobe to their makeover to going online to going on their dates, and discussing it all, as kind of hidden camera type of stuff.
Oh,
So
that's very cool. Well, I'll definitely put that on the show notes. And if somebody want to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
best way to get me is go to 33,000dates.com, and it's 33000 dates.com. And the way to remember it, that's how many dates, well, it's actually more than that,
Yeah.
33,000dates.com, how many dates I've set up so far in my life. But on there, there's a couple things you can do. One, there's a button that you can set up a 15-minute call with me. But then there's something else that's really fun. There's a button for men, a button for women, to take a dating quiz and see where you rank as far as dating in general. And you get a percentage score about your dating life. So it's really fun. It's short. It's like 10 questions.
Yeah.
You get scored. So 33,000dates.com. Or you can go on Amazon and buy my book, Second Acts, Winning Strategies for Dating Over 50 by Andrea McGinty, by me. And
No, no, I'll definitely put that on the show notes. Yeah.
thanks.
Well, anyway, again, Andrea, first of all, again, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Will. It was really fun.
Yeah, me too. Bye bye.